Hello, this is Richie from the Smashing Skull Sessions. I am delighted, and I really was looking forward to this, to welcome Jason Stallworth to the show, man. How are you?
Dude, I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I've been following your Instagram for a while, and I'm like, I need to be on this show. I want to meet Richie, and I'm going to be on here, man. So I'm so glad we were able to connect and get this done, dude.
Yeah, and you're such an interesting character. But first, let's raise a beer to Eddie Van Halen, man. May he rest in peace.
Dude, yes. Rest in peace, brother. Yeah.
Man, I was not expecting that news. I wasn't even sure that he was sick. Were you aware that he was sick?
I wasn't. Two old bandmates. I'm not saying that they're old. Punch me. Two old bandmates from back in the day reached out to me yesterday. It's like, dude, Eddie Van Halen passed away. I'm like, holy crap, man. I think he was most anybody in rock and metal. At some point, they were inspired by Eddie Van Halen, So
absolutely.
That was a hard hit, man.
It's been a shit year for losing great people involved in music. Dude. It's just too much, actually, to think about. But, I mean, what about your first Van Halen experience? Can you remember? What album was it?
The very first, it was a 5150 album.
Oh, okay.
It was Van Hagar. Most people say Van Hagar, it's not Van Halen. And I don't get to the David Lee Roth versus Sammy Hagar. I love them both equally. I think both of them brought different things to Van Halen. Glad we have those different versions. It's good to have that. But yeah, 5150 was it for me. And what turned me on about it is I'm a sucker for melodic style music. And again, but Eddie Van Halen is, he can do all this amazing stuff on guitar, but all times he would hulk a little bit on that album, and even in playing in general, and do what fit the song best. You know what I mean? So that album was so melodic, had so many hooks. Yeah, that was it for me, man.
Yeah, I got 1984. My brother, so I would have been 13, and my brother was like 22. So he'd moved out, and I inherited his record collection, and that kid smoking the cigarette with the angel wings, I was looking at it going, wow, what's this? You didn't even know it was a metal album. And I just remember putting it on and going, oh my God, I've never heard music like this before. Certainly guitar playing, especially. Yeah. And that was it, man. That was my love affair straight away with Van Halen. I think, that album then, I'd say it was relatively new when I inherited it, because kind of the advent of MTV hit Ireland. So then you're suddenly seeing all these amazing bands, Motley Crue, the Van Halens, all these great videos with all these chicks and sunshine, rock and roll lifestyle. Who didn't want to be a rock and roll star in your teenage years,
Yeah, dude.
I mean, so might as well start at that. Whereabouts are you based, Jason, or where were you raised?
So, dude, I live in the Tampa, Florida area, and really the little town that we live in Tampa is called Seffner. What's interesting about the little town is that's where the band Obituary is from. Oh. And where I live now, dude, where I live now, this used to be considered like one of the metal capitals of the world, here in Finland.
Morris Sound, Scott Burns.
Here. Yes, they're right here in Tampa, dude. All that stuff is here in Tampa. So you had so many bands, cranked out of here. I'm originally from a little beach town called Pensacola, which is I'm like one of the few native Floridians. Everybody that moves to Florida is from somewhere else. They move here to retire and enjoy the sunshine.
They do, yeah, that's right.
I was actually born and raised in Pensacola. Yeah, dude, it's a beautiful place. I love it. I have no complaints where we live. It's cool. But I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, northwest, a little beach town there, and I moved here in like 2000. So both
of us have grown up then in two small beach towns, and that's interesting. And what was the scene back then? When you were like, how did you hear metal? How did you get into metal?
Dude, I was about 15 years old, and I was one of those small, skinny kids that got picked on all the time. no confidence. My self-esteem was shit. You know, I didn't, and just didn't really have a lot going in life, you know. And one day I was on the bus. We called it the cheese wagon this kid, this guy with long hair, so cool looking. I admired him so much. He was cool. He had the jacket, the jean jacket with all the patches, you know, Megadeth, Metallica, all that. And everybody thought he was a weirdo, but he was listening to something. He was jamming out, playing air drums on the bus. And I was kind of intimidated by him. Please tell me what you're listening to. He pulled his headphone off. He smiled. He said, Metallica. And I'm like, oh my God. So right then, Richie, I went and took my grass cutting money. I think I had $20 in my pocket, and I bought 2 cassette tapes, Metallica's And Justice for All and Master of Puppets. I was hooked for life.
That was it. Yeah. Wow. And Justice for All. So that was 88, 89 then, was it?
Yeah, this is probably back in like the end of 1989 is when I first discovered heavy metal music, you know. I was hooked though, Richie. I mean, it was just all the lack of confidence I had up to that point in life, you know, just all of a sudden I was reborn. It's like, okay, I know what I want out of my life. I just wasn't sure how I'd pursue it, but I know I needed to be a part of metal, you know?
Yeah. And you summed it up there nicely. I'm the same. Once I heard rock music and later, of course, Metallica, that was it. I just, as you said, it's like a calling, like a brotherhood. I would never, ever imagine myself anything else but a heavy metal fan. And now I love all types of music as well. But I mean, my God, like, you know, they say metal could be a religion. Yeah, that's me signed and sealed there straight away. And what about...
I'm like you know... Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, dude.
No, I'll just keep going.
No, so I'm just like you. I like as well, you know, you mentioned that just now, like sometimes you'll meet people that are stuck in one genre of music and they're like, this is all I like and screw everything else. But you mentioned you like other styles, and I do as well. I just want to bring that up real quick because, you know, I think it's important, as much as passionate as we are about metal music, I think it's okay to branch out and accept other things as well. And that's one of the things about the heavy metal community.
I think for me personally, growing up in the 80s, it was the best time for music. Absolutely. Because, I mean, you had pop music, but it was really good hooks.
It was
and
good.
There was rock music elements to it. We had rap, like the rap music back in the day as well. The 80s rap was just incredible. So you had all this mixing pot going on as a teenager coming through. You'd be hearing it on the radio, you'd see it on television. You're forming all these incredible ideas as someone that loves music, going, yeah, of course bands can diverse. Of course Anthrax could team up with Public Enemy. Why not? It's the same kind of diverse music, but it's like, you know, it's angst, it's anger, it's frustrating. Why not mash them together? I mean, Run DMC and Aerosmith. I mean, you know, you could go on, but I mean,
that was cool.
It was so great, you know, and like those years for me, I'll never forget, from 86 to around 1990, probably with the release of the Black Album. All that time was just like Slayer, Anthrax, Public Enemy, NWA, Duran, you know, just everything. It was just so, dude. So great, God. You know?
Yeah. Pet Shop Boys. I love Phil Collins.
All that
stuff,
dude. Man, we had it so good. It was so incredible. You know, teenagers, people in their 20s don't understand what we had at the time. And it was so cool as well, because we had our cassettes. You could actually hold your music.
You could hold, dude.
What is a cassette now? I had 2 people that came to the house there. From Canada, I think it was 2 years ago now, friends of my wife's, and I have a wall of, like, all my cassettes were in boxes, and I was just going, what can I do? I mean, I don't revisit these boxes. And then I went, maybe if I put double-sided tape and stick them on and tile them, And I tiled all this area with my favorite music at the time. So you'd see Fugazi there, you'd see The Cure there, you'd see Metallica there, you'd see The Screaming Trees, Soundgarden, Fate No More, Public Enemy, you name it. They were all on these cassettes. And these two early 20-somethings came and they were looking at this going, wow, that's really cool. And I goes, go up to them and actually open the box. And they were going, you can open it? And I goes, yeah, open the box. And they opened it. And I says, just take that out. And they were going, what is that? I mean it. They were actually, what is it? And I go, take it out. And they were looking at this clear see-through thing going, they hadn't a clue. They were going, what is it? And I go, it's a tape. It plays music.
Yeah.
No idea. They didn't know how it even worked. Where do you put it?
It was like an ancient device.
But as I said, it was just the love of it, the physical holding of your tape that you paid money for. Man, I wouldn't swap my youth for nothing.
No, it sounds like we grew up in the same era too, man. I love the 80s. I love everything from the pop to the metal and all that stuff, And it's like, you're mentioning bands that collaborated. I remember when Metal Church collaborated with Sir Mix-a-Lot, and they did a version of Iron Man, and
that's
I think that was kind of lost and forgotten. Very
lost in translation, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I forgot about that. I haven't heard that in years.
Yeah.
I love Metal Church, man.
I do too. I had their Blessing in Disguise tape, and
I have that in vinyl still.
Oh, vinyl! Wow, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. That's funny. Now you mentioned that because I did a small bit of research, as I'm known to do, and you actually played in a church. Do you want to talk about that and how it came about?
Yeah. I'll share some of that. So, like, I grew up in a church. It was called, the religion was Pentecostal holiness, and to a lot of people that sounds very scary. It's like, oh, you guys are like, it's like a death metal concert, a mosh pit, just for a different purpose. But no, like my parents, I don't want to say they're believers in God and Christ and all that, but they weren't like overly like overbearing. They knew like metal was kind of frowned upon. It was a small town. Like I say, I grew up in a beach town, but it was kind of really on the outskirts of that. So, things like heavy metal and the imagery was frowned upon. So when I say Metal Church, things like Metal Church, I could say, well, this is a Christian tape because it says church on it.
So you actually had to hide a lot of your stuff from your parents, maybe as well?
Sort of. Yeah, sort of. I remember because I was kind of behind the curve, and everything. And I remember coming home with a really bad report card, which, like a C was good for me, but I came home with a lot of D's and F's. And my mom's like, all right, get that Metallica and those damn Yankees out of my house, because I had the damn Yankees album too, And
they didn't the music.
Yeah, I kind of blame the music, and I think it was their way of saying, like, okay, we're okay with you doing what you do, but just be decent in everything else and do what you're supposed to do, and that kind of thing. So actually, I got into Christian metal for a short stint there as well. Bands like Mortification, which was like a Christian death metal band, if you can imagine that. I think they're based out of Australia, but no. Long story short, of course I got back into the mainstream metal. And I played in churches for a long time, for 20 years or more. Every church I played in, at that point in time, I was going to more of what's called a contemporary church, and it wasn't like the traditional boring, oh my God, I'm going to fall asleep. But the pastor, the first church I played guitar in, they were a startup, and they were looking for a rock guitar player. So I'm like, okay. And they let me play guitar solos and all that stuff, dude. So it was it wasn't like grindcore metal or anything, but I was
obviously, yeah.
It's like, there wasn't that kind of thing, but it was, I got to play my own style, which was very interesting. And it was a good experience just to be on stage every Sunday to some extent, and I had my other band going back then as well. But yeah, I haven't done that in a long time, probably, I don't know, almost like 7-8 years now. So, but yeah, I have a history of that as well. So kind of brings it interesting.
Is that where you met Ronnie Goodman?
So Ronnie Goodman he actually grew up in the church that I was in, and he was, and you've done your research, man. He was one of my mentors, and this dude, he actually passed away a few years ago, dude. And talking about, like, he was never famous, right? And he put out some albums and stuff, but he was such. A lot of people will think Christians are judgmental, and some of them are. Many of them are, but he was one of those people. He was kind of like a Christian hippie, if you will.
Sounds
He
cool.
played awesome guitarist. He taught me so much, mentored me, and so I owe a lot of my where I'm at today to that man. And again, unfortunately, he passed away like 2 years ago. But yeah, he was. I grew up with him. He was like probably 15 years, 20 years older than me, but I grew up with him. So.
And what kind of music was Ronnie into? Was he more into the blues, or was he kind of rock? Or
Yeah, he was into more of like a blues jazz. He had this Fender Stratocaster, American Fender Strat, which he later sold to me, and then I got rid of after that because it wasn't metal. I'm like, why don't I still have this guitar? And
the follies of youth.
Yeah, dude. And he played through this Roland amp, this Roland jazz amp. So he just, he had a very distinct style, though. It was, we played in church and all that stuff. And, back then when I was playing in that church, we were playing like piano-based songs. So it kind of forced me to learn the fretboard really well as a young guitar player, because we're playing in keys like E flat and B flat. Those aren't really guitar-friendly chords to play in. So I had to learn bar chords and all this stuff. So it was actually a really good experience to go through all of that, and it just kind of like helped me become better, a better musician, not just a guitar player, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you probably developed your ear for music as well through that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So when did, we'll say, the likes of your guitar heroes suddenly come home to roost, as we'd say, the Satrianis, the Van Halens, When did you get access to them, and what was it like hearing them for the first time? I love Satriani, actually.
Yes, Satriani is just a dude. Like I've got his book in here somewhere. Strange, Beautiful Music. I'm a big Satch fan. My first song, I started playing acoustic guitar the end of 1989. One of my uncles, he had this acoustic with 4 rusty strings on it. Started playing it. He saw it I was serious. I picked out Iron Man. That was my first song. It was pretty easy. And dude, that's a beer you have. That beer looks so good, man.
Yeah, Pinnacle.
That was awesome, dude. I'll share what I'm drinking in a moment here, but no. So real quick, I picked up the acoustic. My parents saw that I was serious about it. My uncle saw I was serious, so they put strings on it. 3 months later, they bought me an electric. But my dad teamed up with this local musician in town, this guy by the name of Ronnie Miller, who's still a pretty hot musician in Pensacola. And he took me to a guitar shop, got me set up with a little Dean Markley amp and my first guitar, and took him over. He took me over to his house and was like, "Dude, I want you to hear this." He puts in "Flying in a Blue Dream." I melted. It was game over because again, my taste in, I love stuff. I even love some black metal stuff, but I love melodies. I love the melodic feel. And when I heard that track, I get chills even thinking about I'm like, holy crap, what is this, dude?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's so, and you know what? He's got a signature sound, so you'd know Satriani like that.
2 notes. It's him.
It's him, yeah. There's actually quite a lot of guitarists like that. And what about, would you have kind of gravitated towards Satriani more so, or did you investigate further? Like obviously Hammett from Metallica, when you were listening to
Hammett. Yeah,
another brilliant guitarist. He has these detractors as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I love his style. I love Kirk Hammett's style because he, these types of guitar players, Kirk Hammett and Joe Satch, you've got some really phenomenal guitar players out there that they can shred up and down the neck night and day, but then after 20 seconds, it's like, oh, okay, I'm asleep now. But guys like Kirk Hammett and Joe Satriani, like, they have it in the tank to pull out pretty much whatever they want at any given time, but they also know what to do, what's best for the song, and to captivate the listener.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing for guitar players, man. Huge. So, and Kirk Hammett does that. The Black Album, for example, Richie, the Black Album, a lot of people like pick on that, but I think it was phenomenal because Kirk does all this eerie sounding stuff, spooky sounding stuff, and you can, like, he's big into horror, right? You can sense that in his playing. So it's like, whoa, this is cool, man.
Yeah. a lot of that is you're spot on, and a lot of it is down to him recognizing that the song is bigger than the actual guitarist. You know,
Exactly.
I don't think a lot of people pay attention to that much, so they tend to criticize a lot more because of it. I mean, you can see the absence of him in which one is it? Saint Anger, that he's not even allowed to do a solo.
Yeah.
There's the absence straight away. It's just like, Jesus Christ, you know.
You're like, what is this? You know?
Yeah, it's awful, man. Now, we'd say the young Jason that's hitting his 20s, what was your thought process back then? Were you determined to try and stay on the path of making a career out of music, or did you have to conform and, you know, jump in and try and earn a wage to maybe supplement your passion?
This is a tough question, dude, because it kind of brings me to some of the things that, and I like to be transparent. I love putting myself out there and being honest, but, you know, I conformed. I, you know, went to junior college. I didn't do that well. I was on acting scholarship back then. And then shortly after that, it was like, I knew in the back of my mind and in my heart, I wanted to pursue music. But I think that you and I, or especially our generation, we were taught a series of patterns. You go to school, you get good grades, then go to a college, then go get a job, work for somebody else, save your money, invest in your 401k, and maybe one day when you're 60 freaking something years old, you get to retire and then you die. Yeah. And dude, so I struggled with that for so long. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I do. Exactly.
And it's so really, my life was kind of like really in the shitter. Like during my 20s, you know, I went through 2 divorces because, you know, you're following that pattern. You're getting married and you're doing these things. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what society expects me to do. And I kind of gave into that. I don't want to like. No,
it's okay. But I mean, you're dead right. You do feel that you have to give in to that. Yeah. And then it might just take. Yeah. What was the turning point actually? Where was that?
The turning point was very strong. My current wife, who we have been together now, we just actually officially tied the knot in Vegas.
Oh, congratulations, man!
But
here's your good health and happiness, man.
Thank you, brother. But we met in 2008, and I suck at math. What are we in now? 2020. So yeah, we met in 2008, dude. And life for me changed, man, because after going through 2 divorces, I was kind of playing acoustic out, but I really had given up on my musical dream. I was just like, you know, I'll just be what I am. You know, I'll just be drunk most of the time and kind of float through life, and you know, maybe something happened. But I met her, things changed, and I said, you know what? Because at that point, I didn't have any studio gear. I had pawned it all because of my second marriage. And like, that's a bad story, but I got my.
How old are you then, Jason?
I was probably So I was 33 when I met my current wife now.
Wow, so 2 divorces.
2 divorces at 33.
And at 33, Jesus Christ.
Not a good track record, dude. Well, going downhill fast.
But it's a different type of living over in America anyway, you know. I mean, Catholic Ireland here, man, you'd be shot. You'd be dragged out and shot after 1 divorce.
You're like, nope, it's not happening, dude.
You'll grin and bear it.
You're just going to live through it, dude.
Yes, you know? Sorry, go on. That was, So 33, yes.
That's when life changed. Life changed. I, you know, her and I got together and I kind of found like this new fire, and it's like, I'm a musician. I'm a songwriter. I'm a guitarist, you know, I'm a songwriter, and I'm all these things that I haven't been the past, you know, several years. So I started accumulating studio gear, and I said, screw this. I'm releasing an album. So I released my very first album in 2013, Apocalyptic Dreams, which was an instrumental, I'd say a instrumental metal, but it's more kind of on the hard rock, classic heavy metal stuff.
Okay.
You know, and
you did the whole thing yourself, or did you need help?
No, I did everything myself. I did because it was just an instrumental. There's no rules in it, so it's kind of, I don't say that's easier, but honestly, it is, dude. Like, you know, if you're just focused on guitar, I did my own bass tracks. I found drum loops, and I hate to admit this, but I found they were actually recording in the studio. There's a company called Beta Monkey, and they produce a series of drum loops called Double Bass Mania. And my latest album, and we can talk about that later, but I actually hired a real drummer, Cameron Fleury, out of Canada, and he's actually recording drums on my album I'm recording right now. But back then, it was kind of one of those things was like, well, I didn't have a lot of money to invest. And I'm like, this is what I have. And I think sometimes people, Richie, let their limitations, their seemingly limitations hold them back. And there's a quote, and I think it's on some movie, and several entrepreneurs have said this. It's like, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Yeah.
It's very powerful, dude, So I'm
actually,
like, I'm releasing this. I'm just going to put it out. And actually, I got a lot of good feedback from it over the years, dude. So, here I am, working on album number 5. So
it's incredible. Where were you releasing it to, Jason? Like, were you aware of a scene that you were releasing it out to? Was it through YouTube, or was it MySpace back then, or what year was that?
That was 2013, and I actually released it to the world, dude. I that album, I released it on Spotify, iTunes. I went through a company called CD Baby, and Derek Silvers is one of he's the one I believe who started that, famous entrepreneur. And because I was digging, I'm like, how do I release this? I put stuff on YouTube sometimes. I'm like, well, that's not really releasing it. I'm just playing on YouTube. I do that now. So I want an album. So there's so many digital, and I'm starting to help other guitar players with this as well. I've got like a blog post series on my site that takes musicians through the process on how to do that, how to release your own album, because you have the access to do that. But back then you had to dig for it. So if you're determined to do something, you will find a way. And I was like, I'm going to put out an album. So CD Baby, you pay them a fee and they just release it on all platforms. So, I remember the release date. I go on Spotify and iTunes. I'm like, hey, there I am. I'm official now.
It must have been an incredible feeling for you after such a long time and so much kind of baggage that you brought to that point, and then just to drop it and go, this is me now. This is my turning point. It's an incredible decision to make. First of all, to go through with it, and then see the absolute buzz of seeing your album up there, cover art, everything there. Yeah,
it was great. Funny thing you mentioned cover art. I looked at the sky one night and there's a full moon, so I just took a snapshot on my whatever phone, probably some old piece of crap phone, and I just put some kind of like coloring on it and some cool font. There's my album cover.
And were you hanging around with any musicians at that stage, Jason?
Other than the people that I was playing with at church, no. The thing, because I was still playing pretty heavily in the church on a weekly basis back in those days, and that was that kind of kept me in the scene without really being in the scene. At least I was with other people that played instruments. It wasn't really the style I wanted to play, of course, but sometimes experience just in general will help you push through your life, and it's almost like practicing your guitar. You're not necessarily playing metal the whole time. You're practicing technique. So I was at least on stage and I was practicing, and that was just a good experience to keep my foot in the door, if that makes sense. So
you did you get much feedback, obviously, or where were you in relation to, had you your own channel set up on YouTube, or what kind of activity were you doing at social media at that stage?
I think YouTube. So I met my wife, by the way, on MySpace.
We're talking about Tinder.
Tinder, yeah, dude. It's funny you bringing up cassettes and how that sounds ancient. Now you say MySpace, is like, what is MySpace? It's like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But no, dude. The only social, I think we're on Facebook back then. It really wasn't doing much, But I was on YouTube. I started my YouTube channel in June of 2010. Richie, it took me 10 years to get 10,000 subscribers. Isn't that crazy?
10 years to take 10,000. I'd absolutely believe it. Absolutely. Yeah,
my God.
It's just a different animal altogether, YouTube. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm not too sure myself. It's really frustrating, but you know what? I'm just going to keep moving forward. That's my mentality. Create and move forward.
You and I will talk about this. So we'll talk about this later after the show, and maybe I can help you, because I would definitely want to do that. I'd love to do that. I love to see people succeed in doing what they want to do. You have an awesome show. Like, what you're doing is awesome. So
thank you.
We want to we want to like praise that stuff and put it out there. But yeah, I started my YouTube channel in 2010, and that was about the time I was accumulating all my gear. So I'm like, I can go make some videos just for fun, just for the heck of it. And dude, like, I've got a speed picking video that just took off like crazy. I didn't know the marketing back then. I didn't know how to promote properly, and I didn't really see YouTube as a business like I do now. Yes. Now it's part of my business. It's actually under my LLC, but it's I didn't realize it. And there was a time I kind of fell off YouTube and was not really like consistent with it. And I kind of missed out on a crucial time when it was really starting to take off. But anyway, so yeah, but that was really the only form of social media I had.
So we'll say your second album, I presume, had you a steady job at that stage as well? You were working both, as in playing the church, writing a second album, and also in the rat race, as I call it, trying to earn money.
Dude. Yeah. I just left the rat race in early this year, dude. In January 2020, I walked away from my corporate
That's incredible.
job.
Fair play to you, man.
Yeah, dude. I'm not saying that's the smartest thing to do, but because like with this everything that happened this year, I'm kind of I run a fitness blog too, a muscle building website that I've had for a long time now, and that earns us some money. And I can pick up freelance and contract work and stuff like that, but I don't ever see myself going back to being an employee for some major company like I was. I mean, sitting in a cubicle is just like, it's just soul killing.
Yes, of course it is, man. Especially someone as creative as you. Okay, so second album. What was the inspiration behind it? Can you remember?
I do, yeah. I had already did an instrumental metal album, and I kind of wanted to carry that on. And at that point in time, I considered myself just an instrumental metal music guy. That's just what I was going to do. So I wanted to tie something in with working out. About the same time I started playing guitar, I also started training. Because again, I was a small, skinny kid, and lifting weights was a means to an end. It took me about 7 years to really grow, but I wanted to tie something like, there's not really any, there's workout music, but there's no album out there that's specifically made for working out. So I created Heavy Metal Workout.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. Spotted that niche.
Yeah, that was a little niche, and that album still does that first album, or the first Heavy Metal Workout album, because I did a sequel of that, just a little bit heavier version, of it later in 2017. But that album still does well. It still gets most of the listens on Spotify, man. So
brilliant. And what's the name of that album, Jace?
It's just called Heavy Metal Workout.
Okay.
There's Heavy Metal Workout released in 2016, and a year later I released Heavy Metal Workout 2. I kept it super simple, dude. It's just instrumental metal. Yeah. And there's kind of a science behind it, though, Richie. There's kind of I studied the BPMs that people like to work out to, and the types of beats that would be motivating. And the music was simple to write, because there's really no stops or slow downs. And of course there's no vocals. Sometimes vocals can be distracting when you're trying to concentrate, So I'm like, this is just made for working out. It's just, I kind of deem it as like lounge music for the gym. That's probably not the right term, but lounge doesn't sound hardcore, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's just background for working out is what it was. So I created that for. So,
And was that just a digital release, Jason?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting, man. And how did you get into weightlifting? Was it weightlifting or just working out, or
it was specifically weightlifting, dude. I was just like I said, I got picked on a lot, man. I mean, there's this one kid, dude. This kid was in our church, and he meant well, right? He like, if somebody were to mess with us, he would protect us, but he was so strong, he would like hold us down. It's like, all right, you got to call me uncle before I let you back up, and it's like, I just get so pissed off. I'd wanted to overpower that, but I got picked on by other kids that were more serious. I remember in 6th grade, one kid just like shoved me up against a locker for no reason and was like, I'm going to beat your ass, and just like, I remember certain incidents like that, because it's like the animal kingdom. Kids are like animals. When an animal is weak, the other animals sense that and they attack it. It's kind of like I don't know, it's in our blood or something. So going through that, I was like, no, and I'm gonna overcome this. I'm gonna start lifting and get bigger, or whatever. But I never got like bodybuilder big or anything like that. I loved that sport and all that, but I never took it to that extreme.
Yeah.
That was why, and it means to an end. But it turned into a passion, Richie. It turned into like I love doing it. I still wake up at 4:30 in the morning, most mornings, and go train.
Jeez. Okay. Wow. You had that going on in one part of it. Was that what all this working out, weightlifting and stuff like that? Were you still, I'm trying to just get parallels here, were you still involved in, were you still married? Were you still first, second marriage at that stage, or had you moved on, or were you divorced, or what stage were all those workouts and stuff going on?
Well, I trained, dude. I started lifting weights young age, like around 14 years old.
Okay. So, right.
I tell you, this is the one thing that stayed constant throughout my life. Going through the divorces and some of the other dumb decisions I made. Because I always tell people when they're going through hard times in life. I tell people this, and it sounds harsh, and I'm kind of stealing this from Grant Cardone. But if you look at yourself and look and say, everything that happens in your life is your fault. It's my fault. I'm accountable somewhere down the line. And once you accept that, then you have total control over everything that happens in your life. Because now you can change it, or you can react differently to those things that maybe happen. So anyway, that's just a side note. But training was kind of like, that was kind of constant through all the bad decisions I made, because I can't say the women were bad people. Maybe they were, but I chose to be with them, right?
Yeah.
My choice, it's my choice not to leave or whatever, but it's,
you had the stability of the training. That was that's what I'm trying to get to. That's what kept you going. I can't help but add Arnold Schwarzenegger. Was he an influence?
Oh, dude, huge. No pun intended. A huge influence, man.
Yeah.
Wow,
for so many people back in the day, his workout videos and his whole demeanor, the way he holds himself and promotes physical fitness as well. How did you come across him?
Back in the day, watching movies like Predator and all his movies that he had back then, and Sylvester Stallone, those guys were just kind of my heroes. They had muscles, and you saw that, and it was either so appealing that you're going to go do that, because that was part of my inspiration, or you were turned off by it. But I was like, man, Arnold's the man. So and as I was getting into bodybuilding and looking through the magazines, of course he was in like every magazine you could possibly think of back then. And Arnold was just so cool though, dude. Like he just seemed like a cool person. A lot of people think that weightlifter guys and meatheads are just assholes, and it's like, no, the majority, you got some people like that, but the majority of people that train are just down to earth, cool people and willing to help people, and Arnold was that person. So he had a huge influence on my training and life in general, dude.
Excellent. And a real good person as well, backed it up, but outside of Hollywood as well, to be fair. Dude. You did say there that you'd acting classes. When I came across you, first of all, your voice, definitely. I mean, have you just taught? I don't know, man. I'm just randomly throwing this at you.
Yeah, that's cool.
I always think of John Goodman when I hear your voice, because I'm a huge, big Lebowski fan,
Oh, dude, yeah.
You keep using dude. It's just like the subtle tones, man. Have you ever gone down that route, maybe looking for voice work through animation, or have you actually even pursued the dream of becoming maybe an actor? I'm just throwing this out to you.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I remember in junior college, I was in this little town called Brewton, Alabama, of all places to go. But in Alabama, certain parts of Alabama are actually really cool. But I was in this small little prestigious town with a lot of like highly sought after educators at this specific college, Jefferson Davis. And I somehow got an acting scholarship after trying out. Me and my cousin both did at the time. And, my parents sent me to that college. I didn't go to college after that. I didn't that's another story. I do have degrees and all that I got later in life, which, can. I don't promote getting degrees because I honestly think they're a waste of time, but whatever. It's junior college. My parents sent me to the smaller one because they thought I would, do better there because I didn't do so well in school, But anyway, back to acting. I loved it. I was in the Man of La Mancha play, and I was also in Huck Finn. And Man of La Mancha actually played acoustic guitar in part of that as well. I have vague memories of that, but I would love to be a part of that. I never pursued it. We're talking about before how you get sucked into, just the life, going to a regular job and just doing that. And what happens is we accumulate, whether it's wives or kids or bills and houses and all this like shit. Do we really need all this right now? Once you get sucked into that, you're kind of screwed. You kind of screw yourself. You know what I mean? From really pursuing your dreams. Because I remember one point in life, I was working 2 and 3 jobs constant for years, just trying to make it. So,
yeah. It's mad. There's just so many different things and so many signs along the way that if you actually stopped to look at maybe 1 or 2 of those signs and kind of go, actually, I can actually go this way. I can go. Yeah. Sometimes you actually need a friend to actually help you as well, to just go, man, you have a talent, do it. And then there's so much other stuff going on in your brain. The conformity, it's strange. It's strange. I mean, I was in that position myself, so frustrated, loving the music, but what could I contribute to that music? I played bass myself, and
awesome, dude.
Yeah, and always went to thousands of gigs, and just in the end just got so frustrated at hearing so many brilliant bands in Ireland and then going, who's going to promote them? They're trying their best themselves. Can anybody else do it? And I'm looking around going, nobody's doing this. Why can't I? I have the passion,
That's you, man. Yeah.
And I just did it. I didn't think too much about it. I mean, I was this frustrated musician, but I never had the time with family. Time is always the biggest enemy, Jason. I keep saying that time is our enemy. And then I just went, you know what? I'm going to do it and see where it'll bring me. And it's the best decision I made in my life because it is me. That is me. That's just a short summary.
No, I love that about you though, dude, because you're doing it. It takes balls to do that. It takes courage to step out and do that. Because when you started doing this, tell me, when you started doing this, did you not have several voices in your head saying, no, that's not the safe route. You really shouldn't try that. You're not going to be good. You have all these voices coming into your head. Just saying,
absolutely.
no. And it's called the lizard part of our brain. I was listening to someone a while back talking about this. The lizard part of your brain, the lizard thinks that, okay, well, I just want to get laid, food, and safety. That's it. So when we're faced with decisions, when we step out to do something great that we're not used to doing, our lizard part of our brain kicks in and says, wait a minute. No,
that's probably the loudest voice.
It is. It really is. Yeah. So we had to just break it, man. We had to break past that. And you did that. You're doing this podcast, this show right now, which is, again, I've been watching you for a while. It's phenomenal, dude. I love it.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much. That means a lot, man.
It's good work, man.
What was I going to say to you? Yes. Just trying to get up to your latest album. Your third album was again another instrumental, but at that stage you probably were thinking maybe I should be singing at that stage.
Yeah, like my third album was Heavy Metal Workout 2. It was just like when I made Heavy Metal Workout 1, dude, I was just starting to really get into a lot of European melodic death metal, like Arch Enemy and Amon Amarth, Evergrey, Tom England. Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, my taste. It's funny because, I'm 45 years old now, and people used to tell me, it's like, well, when you get older, you're not going to like metal anymore. I'm like, what am I supposed to listen to? Smooth jazz? I mean, come on. Yeah. My tastes have gotten heavier.
Yes. Yeah. And the European scene is very strong, man. So good. So you just named the Amon Amarth there. A great example. Yeah. Fucking hell. I saw them in Cork, which is my home city. And they played to 80 of us.
Wow, man.
In a little bar in Cork called the Crushkeen Lawn, man. Yeah. We were hugging them and fucking chatting to them afterwards. They barely had enough room to put up the drum kit.
Wow.
Now, this is them starting off, you know what I mean? But I mean, like, it was just incredible. And then it went to them playing Limerick, and I'll give a shout out to Bad Reputation, John and Kieran. They got him to a castle. That was basically John's Castle in Limerick, and that was, I suppose, the whole theory was that Vikings actually came up the river, and the Monomart played there to a few thousand of us, and it was just mind blowing.
But you got to see them in like when they were beginning, though.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Oh man,
it's ridiculous. As I said to you, I've gone to thousands of gigs, man. I saw Nirvana in the same type of venue.
Wow, dude!
Just so many bands in tiny venues, and then and to know what as well, it's great. You'd wear the T-shirt and the pride that you feel when those bands get to the stadiums, the arenas. You know, so nice, so good.
It's amazing, dude. I mean, but yeah, I discovered that whole new realm of music for me. You know, I was always kind of boxed in musically. Like when I started out listening to Metallica, it's all I wanted to hear at that time. And I ventured into the hair bands a little, but I didn't really start getting into the heavier stuff until later on. But yeah, once I started getting into the European melodic death metal scene, my style just like overnight progressed. So I'm like, well, Heavy Metal Workout was good classic metal album, but I want to do something a little bit more aggressive. So I did. And I'd already written a lot of the music for that. Like I was writing Heavy Metal Workout and Heavy Metal Workout 2 probably simultaneously. So I already had much of the music written for the sequel. So I'm like, let me just do this. But then after that, I was like, I need to go to a different level now. I need to take it to the next level, you know.
Oh, and how did you figure that one out? Just through listening to the bands that you talked about and figuring out the chords and
yeah, it's just the funny thing is, like, I never was a big fan of learning other people's songs. I did that as beginner guitars, but after that, it was always, no, I don't want to play other people's music. I want to play my own. I want to write my own, you know. And so I just started writing. It's funny, like even some of the music on the latest album I released last year, which is my first vocal album, some of the songs were written way back. I took some of those songs and just translated them into a 7-string guitar, because this last album, Masterpiece, 2019, was my first album singing and my first album with a 7-string guitar. But I'd always been a singer throughout my life, but not the greatest singer. But I started really getting into death metal vocals and trying that. I'm like, you know, I love this. And I ran a test run by some friends of mine who would be brutally honest with me and tell me, it's like, okay, Jason, no, you suck, don't do that. Or, yeah, you know what, try it, do it. So I went from there, dude, and I just put my heart into it, man. And that was
Masterpiece,
dude.
Let's hear a track off it. Do you have any particular song that you have in mind?
Probably, you know, I think some of the favorites really is the first track on there, Dragon's Flame. That's
Flame.
Yeah, that one's got multiple vocal styles in it. The very first track there.
Can you hear it? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
Some great shredding in this one, actually. I'm hearing Chuck and Death Air, man.
Just a little melodies, you know.
And Dave Mustaine as well, actually.
Yeah, I love Dave, dude.
great riff.
You think you have the right to push everyone around you. It's just a matter of time. You will fall, followed by your pride. To summon you to my world, where the dragon slave consumed all that's wrong.
Cameron Fleury on drums. He was amazing.
Yeah, beast mode, man.
The walls that surround you, they belong to me. Now that you're trapped inside, you'll never be free. But from my soul is in a place so far away.
Yeah, man, it's a lovely mix of Megadeth and Death. You know, that's my impressions, you know.
Thank you, dude. Yeah.
High praise, though.
Consumed by the dragon's flame.
I love that riff, man.
That's that heavy 7-string, man. That guy is the best drummer I've ever jammed with, man.
Man, that had so much going on there, especially as an opening track. That's what you want, man. That's what sets the fucking bar for the rest of the album. Was that an obvious opener?
Yeah, it was very clear. That one, like after reviewing the album, the songs, that was like that had to be the opener. It was clear.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, good choice, man. Good choice.
Thank
And how
you.
did you meet the drummer? Did you say Jason, or how did you come across him?
I actually met I met him through another guy I was recording guitar for out in LA, and he's a solo artist. He hasn't released his album yet. I think he's going to release something next year, but he had kind of like a bluesy rock thing I was doing for him, and he found me, I guess, through either YouTube or something, and then he said, yeah, I'm using this guy for drums, you know, you should reach out to him. So of course that style that I was recording for this guy really wasn't metal, so I was like, okay, whatever, you know. But I looked Cameron Fleury, he's out of Canada. I looked him up on YouTube, and I'm like, oh wow, this dude's a metal drummer and he's phenomenal. So I reached out to him, and then, you know, like he's doing the second album for me now, my fifth album, but it's the second time using him, and
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
just phenomenal.
yeah, I hear Nick Menza there as well.
Yeah.
That was another gig I saw actually in Dublin, the Megadeth Rust in Peace tour with Alice in Chains supporting.
Dude, yeah.
That was a serious fucking gig.
I bet it was.
Wow. They brought that, man. They brought that. How did you decide to write a book?
Oh, dude. So that was, what was that? I released that in 2017, shortly after Heavy Metal Workout Part 2.
Yeah.
I just, you know, it's like, I'm still not well known enough to really like write an autobiography. But I still wanted to put something out there that was related to working out and music and metal. And I figured if I shared my story with people, or some of my story and some of the challenges that I faced, and then just the book is all over the place, man. I go through the recording process and give you some workout guidance and all this stuff. It's kind of everywhere, but it's I just want to put something together in that arena that would help other people. That was the whole preface behind that. It's like, it wasn't really, and I tell people when they buy the book, it's not, the book's about me, but it's not really about me. It's about, it's really about you, and how can you be inspired by this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, again, there's a lot of people out there that won't go through the whole YouTube side of things. They actually will, you can get to more so by audiobooks, for example.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I love reading. I don't listen to the audiobooks, which is strange. I like listening to podcasts, but audiobooks, I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet. Maybe I love it, but I always just love having a physical book in my hand. As the eyesight has gotten worse, unfortunately, with age.
No, dude, yeah.
It's a bit of a problem, so I just fucking got glasses in the end. But yeah, I definitely love a good read, and I admire you. That is a challenge in itself to write a book. How did you, had you anything to kind of guide you, or, you know, there's obviously certain things that you would definitely kind of, I suppose, look to and kind of go, how do you actually formulate a book? And did you investigate a lot, or did you just literally write?
It was kind of, so the funny thing is like it all goes back to my childhood. I was a writer then. I used to do a lot of creative writing then, as well as writing music. But then I got into my 20s and I did the married and getting 2 or 3 jobs thing. So that kept me away from all of my passions. Yeah. So it was just when I started writing and recording music as a serious musician, as you know, as wanting to do this for my life, I also started writing as well. And around 2008, I met my wife. About a year later, I started accumulating studio gear, started recording music. About a year after that, 2010-ish, when I started my YouTube channel, I also started the fitness blog called themuscleprogram.com. So I started writing for that site.
Okay. So that's where you got out your creative juices, writing was.
Yeah, dude. I always want to do something in those arenas. So I'm like, well, let me just, you come to a point in life, Richie, and then like you said, with what you're doing now, you're helping promote bands and really putting the word out there and doing good work. You know, it's like you get to a point in life, he's like, this is what I should have been doing all along, but
so frustrating. Yeah.
It very much is. I'm glad we're doing it now.
Yes.
Bro. You know, it's what counts. But you know, we're from the same camp, though, dude. We like our cassettes and CDs. We like our physical books. I like sit on my patio and read a book. I listen to podcasts. You know, well, that's a little bit different. But for a book, I want to read the book, dude. You know, I want a book.
I have a book in me, and it's probably not quite 3/4 way there, but it's rested. It's exhausted me, and I just parked it to the side. I got 3/4 up there. It's nothing to do with heavy metal or anything like that. It's just a work of fiction based on maybe 2 or 3 characters. I went through such a creative period with that book, and I just parked it, and it's there, and I will revisit it. But and again, it's just trying to get the creative spirit out. Yeah,
I'm telling you right now. So you're accountable to me right now. You have to finish that book. I'm serious. Here's what happens. Here's something I recently learned from Gary Vaynerchuk. I listen to him sometimes, Gary V on YouTube, and you know, he said oftentimes people will overestimate what they can do in 6 months, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And what I've learned with writing books, with writing music, is you really have to sit down and plan things out. And you have to say, okay, this week, these 2 hours, this is what I'm working on. These 2 hours, this is what I'm working on, and so forth. And you kind of have to schedule. I know us creative people, we don't like schedules, but you really do have to stick to the schedule. You know, if you don't, it won't happen, though. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten off schedule the album I'm recording right now, and guess what's happened? Nothing, because I've gotten off my schedule. So I will be creating a new schedule for that this week. But the second thing I say about your book and creative, sometimes you do have to walk away from things and come back to them. But I think you need to force yourself to go back to it at a certain point because our motivation and our creativeness, it's not just bestowed upon us. It happens when we take action, and you take action all the time now with what you're doing. But I think you need to schedule some time in, maybe next week even, or next month or whatever, and say,
do you not find then as well though, because that's my biggest problem, is I'm overcritical of myself.
Oh yeah. We are. So
that's even with the book now. I know if I go back to that, I will just fucking and it's so funny, or not even funny, but it's just like sometimes, like I interviewed a great guy there. It's yet to come out actually. It's James. He's in a band called Hell Ripper.
Oh, cool.
And
awesome.
He's so creative, man. He's so young, so creative. But sometimes you kind of go, I'm going to delete it as shit. And
ooh, don't do that.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I would be really critical of my own work, and especially if I go back to that book now, I could just kind of go and just get bogged down on criticizing myself so much that I just won't make any progress with it. But as I said, I just recognize how far I got and parked it, and that's it. I just went, okay, leave it as such.
You have to revisit it though, because it's part of your legacy. It's part of who you are. And even like, I know what you're saying, like something we worked on many years ago or a few years ago, whatever, we think, well, we're better now than we were back then. So you're thinking, if I go back through it now, it's just going to be garbage to me. But you got to understand though, what you were feeling and what you're going through that time in your life, as those are being reflected in your writing, even though it's fiction, and fiction's hard to write, dude. But even though those things were being translated from your life and what you experienced to these fictional characters, so that's going to speak to someone.
Yeah,
your characters, what they're going through and the actions they're taking and so forth, that is going to speak to someone. It's going to be relevant to someone, to many people, hopefully. So I think you just go back. You can proofread it, but just go ahead and make the decision that, I'm not going to delete this book. You may read through it and revise some things. That's fine.
Yeah.
We get hung up on the details sometimes, though. Sometimes it's best just to do it, let someone else proofread it, and put it out there. Let someone else proofread it.
I think so. Yeah, I think it just culminated with that book. With that book and parked it, and then I went on to the podcast. It was just couldn't deny what was inside me. Just like, I have to do stuff, and out it went.
This is good. This is great.
Yeah, it's strange that it took so long for me to get to that point, but I'm so grateful that I have now. And let's talk about your Metal and Beers podcast. How did that come about?
Oh, dude, Metal and Beer. I just started a new Metal and Beer YouTube channel. I used to do beer reviews, and maybe you've seen them on my Jason Stallworth channel.
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And I decided to segregate those. For one, those videos weren't getting many views. So I was like, I'm like, dude, at some point, you have to make things a business decision. Like, okay, if I'm spending X amount of time on this, but it's not gaining traction, sometimes you have to ditch it and spend more time into things that's gaining momentum. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you stay stagnant and you stay down. So I'm like, well, I love Metal and Beer. Why don't I just do a separate channel? And I decided I'll just do one video a week, and I won't even play guitar in it. I'll just drink beer, and before we got on this podcast, I did a review of this beer here, the Shipyard Smashed Pumpkin.
It looks delicious.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty good. So it's like, I'll make it a hobby. I won't give up on it, but I will segregate it because not all of my guitar players on my YouTube channel and music fans, not all of them drink beer. A lot of them do, but not all of them do. So I'm like, let me keep that separate. Let me segregate that. So,
and again, why did you go into that side of things?
Dude, I grew a love for craft beer like around 2010. I was a very heavy drinker, and among some other things, before I met my wife, and then a year into our relationship, I just decided I had too much to drink, and I didn't drink as much when I met her, but I still drink probably kind of
We
getting out.
all probably drink too much.
You
so.
probably drink too much, yeah. But I wasn't like an angry. I was never an angry drunk. I was more of like, hey, I love you, man. I was that kind of guy, you know.
Yeah.
But one night I
Same.
started seeing demons. Sometimes I'll see demons when I drink too much, you know. And I think I kind of scared her at this nightclub we're at this time. And so I said, you know what? I'm just not going to drink anymore for a while. I laid it down for a whole year. And then we were at her parents' house one day, in like 2010-ish, a year later. And she's like, you know what? Why don't you have a beer with my dad? And he had this beer called Singha, which is a Thai beer. Because again, her mom is Thai. And I tried. I'm like, I made a decision that day that, okay, I'll start drinking again, but I will only drink good quality beer, which in the States is mainly craft beer. So I became passionate about it. I love craft beer, dude. I love it, you know?
Yeah. Like when we were, like I've gone over a few times to America, and the beer over there has been just shocking, really weak. What's it called? Iron City, I think, in Pittsburgh. Man, I was fucking drinking that shit, and nothing was happening. I was just going, "What the hell?
What is this?" Yeah.
And of course, you kind of go. I'd always, as soon as I hit a city, I would always kind of go for the local brew.
Yeah.
So Iron City was so disappointing. Now this is long before any of this craft beer came in probably fashion. But for just any time I went over to Pittsburgh, you don't want to drink Budweiser. There's Heineken there. Fucking hell. But as I said, I just kept looking around. But the last experience when I was over last year to the Berg, it was great. There was so many different types of IPAs, different types of brews. It's actually a bit head-wrecking in the end. It was just like, Jesus, is there a menu? And I just, what's the most popular home brew? And that's the way I go through. That's the way I navigated the beers in America last holiday. I just asked the barman, going, which would you recommend? I don't want the usual shite. Just give me craft beer. You know, there's so many, man. It's the same. Ireland has just mushroomed with craft beers.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's nuts. But it's funnily enough, as I said, I keep promoting it for free, but Pinnakin is the best. Finnish black lager. I love it, man. That's my. It
looks good, dude.
Yeah. So good, so good. But I have to ration it because it comes into Ireland every maybe 2 months, so I have to get 2 trays if I can.
Oh, dude.
You know, but did you go podcast with it? Yeah.
No,
or was it just you said YouTube in it?
Just I stayed with YouTube. I've been toying around with the idea of a podcast. I met a friend of mine in a marketing class for music, and this guy named Ken Candelas. He lives in New York.
You've got a great voice for podcasting, dude.
Well, I want to do it. We're actually thinking about doing something together with it. We started a YouTube channel called Metal Mastermind, where we're helping musicians with practical things like studio, home recording things, and
brilliant.
And so we're going to do something, and I do want to get more involved. Like we love this creative space, whether it's creating music, whether it's creating content, podcasts, writing, books, blog posts. It's just the world. That's our world, dude. Yeah. This is our space, man. So we want to do everything we possibly can. But yeah, I'd love to do a podcast because like even what we're doing right now, I enjoy this, dude. This is like, if I could just do this all day, I might even give up playing music. I'm like, let me just, I mean, halfway joking, but I just enjoy it though, dude. It's just fun, man. And
developing your brand as a musician, Jason, I have to give you huge credit. Obviously you said like it took 10 fucking years of slogging. Like how hard was it not to look at other guys that have, like, they come out of the blue and get huge subscriptions, huge hits. So frustrating. I kind of get bogged down in that. And it's not in relation to my show. It's just when I see these guys fucking shooting a Nerf gun at a fucking stuffed animal and it gets like 3 million views and you're just going, yeah. How hard was that? Like, when was the changing point where you went, actually, I don't care, I'm doing my own thing?
That's a tough thing, dude. Like I look at, and there's a lot of guitar players I admire, like Ola Englund for one, in Sweden. He's, the funny thing is a lot of these people that are YouTube famous now started either maybe a little before or a little after I did. And, and again, I always look back and I blame myself for everything. And I don't mean that in a negative light, but if I truly look back, And instead of saying, well, why did they make it so big and I didn't? I got to look back and say that, well, I didn't treat it like a business, you know, and some people get lucky. Sometimes people just, it's a fluke, they get lucky, but oftentimes it's just a matter of consistency. And I took some time where I wasn't consistent and didn't treat it like a business. I didn't really like dig in. I just like, well, I'm just going to make a video today, you know? So now I'm more strategic. So, and now I have the mentality is like, I don't care if I have 1 million fans. I'd rather have 1,000 hardcore fans that are going to spend $100 a year on my products.
Yeah.
There's my 6-figure income. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not quite at that point yet, but something else I've learned is, you know, in our line of business, what we do, you and I both, we can't just rely on one stream of income either. We had to create multiple. You know, you have to have a podcast, you have to have books, you have to have this and that, and you kind of have to like diversify yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't really care. It bothers me sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, dude. It bothers me sometimes when I see people out there that are they're just blowing up, and like you said, you see just like stupid stuff. Like, okay, how did that? You know.
Yeah.
But you got to move on. You got to move on. You can either spend time like dwelling on that, or you can turn that energy around and saying, well, I'm just going to work that much more and that much harder.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Work more and work harder, and just not get fucking distracted by others. Yeah.
Because it will bring down your headspace. It will kill your state. Like your state of mind, your state of being. And you know, like when you go to do a podcast, like before we went on here, like I was super excited before we got on. I'm like, man, this is going to be awesome. And you have to like really kind of like stand up and get some body movement, you know, do something to get your head in the right space before you go on to do something great. But what worrying about other people, when you look at other channels, they're just blowing up and you're like, well, they're blowing up. What's wrong with me? What am I not doing? It's okay to think strategically about that, right? Just go say, it's like, well, what am I not doing? Let me see. Where's this person? Okay, they've been putting out consistent videos every day for the past 2 years.
Yeah,
I haven't been. You know what I mean? Like you go back and you analyze things, and you make a decision from there. Okay, well, is it feasible for me to make a video every day? Do I really want that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know. And just because someone has a lot of views doesn't really mean they're making a lot of money. You know?
Yeah, true. So how good is it to get feedback off fans?
For lessons?
Well, you know, what you're doing on the guitar. How good is it to get feedback?
It's awesome. And I guess I specify lessons because my YouTube channel was mainly for kind of like, I was doing a lot of lessons on it at one point. Now I've kind of merged it into more of an artist thing, but I love getting the feedback, dude. Is very inspiring, and I get a lot of feedback, man. And I don't have a big audience, dude, so it's extremely inspiring. I know I'm doing something right, and it's just cool to be able to attract the type of people that are just cool people, man. You know.
Yeah, it's great, and as well as that, you are working on a follow-up to Masterpiece.
Yeah, I am. I'm working on, so I got 2 projects I'm working on, dude. One, this next album, I can tell you the name, is called Overcometh.
Okay.
And I was going to release it this year, but I'm not quite done with all the tracks. I still got some, it was going to be an instrumental, but I reached out to my fans and I asked them, like, what do you guys want? Do you want all instrumental like I did before? Or do you want a mix of vocals instrumental, or do you want mainly vocals, a little, you know, and they all said, definitely want vocals. You know, we need your death metal vocals. We need that. So hands down, I'm writing lyrics now, but I've also got I've got a band project I'm going to be starting in 2021. And I can't really talk much about that right now because I'm going to be, this will be actually trademarked. The name is trademarked. It is something I will own. But I want that to be a band. I want it to be much bigger than just me. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be more like a Nightwish meets Lacuna Coil meets, you know, that kind of thing, you know.
Excellent. And these guys that you have in mind for that, it's always great, I think, as well. Just I know there's so much benefits of being of a solo artist. So much. You've creative control. You know, you only have to answer to yourself. But socially wise, jamming with a few fucking musicians surely is such a great feeling.
I want to get back on the stage. It's hard for me to even fathom playing my solo stuff on stage because, you know, Richie, I would literally, like, if I want to go play somewhere in Tampa right now, it's me as a solo artist, you know, and I'm playing metal. I have to have a drummer and a bass player.
Yeah,
I really need a second guitar player.
Yeah.
That means I have to hire those people, man.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to make enough money at the show to even cover that cost.
No.
So, like, playing live for me as a solo artist, it's just going to be me live streaming here, you know, which I plan to do something in the next couple of weeks. But it's, you know, because I can play my background music here and play and sing along with it, you know, for live stream. But I really want to hit the stage again. One of my life goals is to play at the Wacken Festival in Germany, dude.
Oh, man, that would be so cool.
You've probably been there, haven't you?
It's not. No, I haven't, because it sells out every year, man. It sells out as soon as it's announced, and there's such a great choice in Europe for festivals. It's bearable not going there, if you know what I mean.
Wow, dude. Wow.
You know, because
I want to play in Europe for sure. Yeah. And I thought about. I don't even know. Well, nothing's impossible, but for this band project I have in mind, I thought about like getting musicians from Europe. And even though we can't practice together, I can still write the songs. We can learn them as a band and get together and tour or whatever. I've actually been talking to one of the drummers who used to play for Delane.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them. Yep,
I love Delane. So Sanders. So I've been chatting with him some. You know, I think he stopped playing for them in 2014, but he still records for other people and stuff. So, you know, I'm hoping to get, because I want that European vibe in this other project so bad, dude. I have to have that. You know?
Man, that's great. It's great that, you know, you've plans for 2021. It's fantastic talking to you. You are so creative. You've just done so much by getting out of the rat race, and I admire you so much for having the courage to do that. Everybody that's listening, watching, just check out Jason's channel on YouTube. It's Jason Stallworth, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah, just my name. Yeah, just Jason Stallworth, dude.
And you have a website, so maybe just go through how people can find you, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally just type in Google my name, Jason Stallworth, Stallwrth. That jasonstallworth.com is my website. And of course, I've got like links that go all over the place. But if you look up my name on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all those places, I'm there. I have an online shop as well. I know shipping CDs and T-shirts and stuff is a little costly going from the U.S. to Europe, but you know, I've got some stuff on there as well. But yeah, just Google my name, or go jasonstallworth.com. That's the best way to get me.
And thanks a million for coming on the show, Jason. I really appreciate it, man. You were a great guest, great stories, and pleasure talking to you.
No, you as well, Richard. Thank you so much for having me, man. I've been really excited about coming on your show here. So this is a really cool event, dude. Thank you.
And listen to metal, more importantly.
Yes, listen to metal.
So you've been listening to Richie. This is the Smash and Skull Sessions with Jason Stallworth, and thanks for listening. Cheers.